I personally do not believe in laziness. I don't think that laziness actually exists. I believe that it's a phenomenon that takes place entirely in our minds. It only takes place in our minds. Nobody is actually lazy. The reason why people think that they're lazy, in my opinion, is because they have not found something worth working for. Growing up, I thought that I was lazy. Up until I was 19 years old, I thought that I was one of the laziest people on the planet. When I tell you guys I did the bare minimum in every single endeavor in my entire life, I did the bare minimum. Some of you might remember when I talked about my first football practice, Little League. I was 10 years old. I went to one practice, they had me running, doing all this extra bullshit. I quit because I was too lazy. At least at the time, that's how I saw it. I felt like I was too lazy, and I established the belief, the conclusion in my mind that I was a lazy person because of that event, as well as other similar events that had taken place in my life. And I carried that self-perception with me all the way until, like I said earlier, I was 19 or 20. And then I found YouTube. And once I found YouTube and I realized that I actually enjoyed making content, I enjoyed helping people out, creating a community of people who understood me at the time, I realized that I'm actually not a lazy person. I'm actually very, very driven, and my work ethic is probably above average. You see, everybody actually has a much better work ethic than they think they do. The problem is that they don't have a strong enough sense of purpose, right? That is the first thing that you need to find and you need to do if you want to stop being lazy, is you need to establish a strong, deeply rooted sense of purpose. Now, how do you go about finding your life's purpose? A lot of different people will tell you a lot of different things as far as finding your purpose and sticking to it. But what I found in my life, through all of the different phases and transitions that I've undergone in my life, to find your purpose, you need to stop looking for an external source of fulfillment. Rather, you need to find your fulfillment in the present moment, and from there, your purpose will become an expression of your fulfillment. This is where I realized, in my case, for example, that I'm actually meant to be a writer as opposed to a content creator. Not to say that these things are mutually exclusive, but I realized that for me, content creation brings me fulfillment, whereas writing is an expression of my already existing fulfillment. In religious terms, a lot of people say that you should find God and then find your purpose, because God will show you your purpose. And in the same way, to anybody who's not religious, or if you're spiritual, if you don't identify with any specific religion, you need to find your inner source of fulfillment, which will always be found in the present moment. You need to be present enough to be fulfilled in the here and now. And from there, the expression of that presence will be your purpose. Now, that's not to say that that will be your life purpose. That might just be a stepping stone to something else. But you won't know if you don't take that first step. You don't know what's at the top of the staircase until you start walking up the stairs. And in the same way, you don't know what your ultimate purpose is until you adhere to your current present moment purpose. So you need to be present enough to, first of all, understand where you are in life, understand who you are right now, to let go of the delusions of who you want to be and who you want other people to perceive you as even, and just be completely present and be your authentic self. This is the hardest thing that you'll ever have to do, but at the same time, it's the easiest because it's a subtractive process, a reductive process. All you're doing is removing things. And if you're a lazy person, then that should be pretty simple, right? Because you're not actually having to do anything. In fact, you're not doing anything. It's you not doing anything, not trying to uphold the self-perception that you've established based on what other people have told you. Other people who, by the way, will never know you as well as you can know yourself. Don't care if it's your parents, best friend, girlfriend, boyfriend, doesn't matter. Nobody will ever know you as well as you know yourself. When you can let go of that stuff because you're too lazy to carry all of that extra baggage that other people have put on you, then you can find your true self. And once you find your true self, your purpose will find you. And once you find your purpose, or rather, once your purpose finds you, then you'll realize that you're actually not a lazy person because you're doing something that you love. You see, a lot of times when you think that you're lazy, what ends up happening is you procrastinate by doing other things. Notice, doing. Lazy people don't do anything. If you're doing something, you inherently are not lazy. You're simply inefficient. You're not using your time correctly. You're not using your life correctly, rather, because what is life but the accumulation of time? So when you start to use your life more efficiently by doing the thing that you actually love to do, what you'll find is that you're simply exerting the same amount of energy and effort as you were prior, if not, maybe even less, because you love what you're doing. If you're spending time scrolling through social media, watching YouTube videos, binging Netflix, I'm not saying that these things are bad in moderation, but when you spend the majority of your time doing these things as opposed to doing what you actually love to do, you're still exerting the energy and the effort nevertheless, right? So if you're going to exert the energy and the effort, you might as well exert it in the direction of your actual passion and your actual purpose, the vision that you came into this life with. Now, aside from finding your purpose, obviously that can be a multifaceted process which can take some time. As far as a more pragmatic way of not being lazy, of reducing laziness and being more productive, right? Which is ultimately exerting your energy in the direction of higher leverage tasks. Higher leverage tasks which help you progress in your life in whichever ways you find meaningful. For example, going to the gym, or meditating, reading, things like that. Like I said, you're going to exert the energy regardless. It takes the same amount of effort and energy to eat a bunch of junk food as it does to work out and eat healthy food. It's the same exact thing. It's just you're changing your direction. So with that being said, another pragmatic way and instantly applicable way to be more productive and be less lazy is to implement a routine. Implementing a routine can be absolutely life-changing if you're able to stick to this routine. Now, here's the key. A lot of you guys, what I found anyways, at least in my community, I feel like a lot of people thrive on spontaneity, but they also need some sort of regimen. They need some degree of routine and predictability in their lives. And in my life personally, I used to struggle with finding that balance between the predictability and the spontaneity. Because as a creative, I need the spontaneity. I need that window of time to not have to adhere to any sort of expectations or any sort of boundaries. I can just live my life completely in the present moment. Whereas, on the other hand, I need some sort of routine that enables me to progress over time. I need that progression to be built into my day. Otherwise, I will completely surrender to the spontaneity to the extent that I am no longer progressing in ways which I find meaningful. For example, the gym, or meditation, or reading books, things of that nature. All of the self-development practices which I've preached for the better part of 3 years now. The best way to find this balance, in my opinion, is to establish a morning routine and a night routine. A morning routine and a night routine, a set morning and night routine, which put together allows you to build that framework which can contain that spontaneity. Now, there are two things that I would recommend implementing into your morning and or night routine. One of them is working out. Working out either in the morning or the night will allow you to establish that consistent progressive overload in your life. You are constantly getting better because it is built into your day. And the next thing that I would recommend for implementing into your routine, your morning and night routine actually, is a skincare routine. And that brings me to Tiege Hanley, the sponsor of today's video. You've heard me talk about them before, and you're going to keep hearing me talk about them because I know the positive impact their products will have on your life. Seriously, I still don't think some of you believe me when I tell you just how much implementing a quality skincare routine will improve your confidence in all aspects of your life. Tiege Hanley makes taking care of your skin uncomplicated. They provide you with all of the products you need and none of the products that you don't need. I personally recommend that you start with their level 1 skincare system, which comes with all of the basics. A daily face wash, an exfoliating scrub, an AM moisturizer with SPF 20, and a PM moisturizer. Oh, and to make it dead simple for guys like us, they provide this instruction card in every box that tells you when to use each product, how much of each product to use, and in what order to use each product. It definitely comes in clutch. Skincare wasn't always something I took seriously, but now that I have, I wish I would have started sooner.
But you don't just have to take my word for it, because they have over 5,000 five-star reviews from customers all around the globe. In addition to amazing skin, members of Tiege Hanley get tons of benefits, including at least 20% off the retail price, access to exclusive monthly deals, the ability to pause or cancel your subscription at any time, and free US shipping.
And because Tiege Hanley is sponsoring today's video, they're offering my viewers, which is you guys, an amazing deal. Just click the first link in the description or the pinned comment of this video and get 30% off your first box and a free gift. Okay, seriously, that's an amazing deal. Click the link down below and get started today. Now, aside from establishing a routine, something that I think a lot of you guys need to do, okay, and by a lot, I mean the vast majority of people on this planet. A lot of you guys need to examine your friend group. A lot of you are unproductive because you're hanging around other unproductive people. I don't care how independent you are or how strong-minded, strong-willed you are. If you are placed in an environment where you are surrounded by nothing but unproductive people, you will be another unproductive person. Because even if you're more productive than the average person in your friend group, you're still going to be unproductive compared to people who are not in your friend group. So you need to surround yourself with people who inspire you to elevate, who inspire you to be more productive in ways which are meaningful to you. Because like I said, if you're not passionate about something, it doesn't really make any sense for you to be productive in that area. Because now you're progressing in the wrong direction, which in my opinion is actually regression in disguise. If you know that you want to be a professional basketball player, what business do you have waking up at 5 a.m. to go work on your soccer skills? It doesn't make any sense, right? So in the same way, you need to establish what it is that you love to do and who you want to become, and then you need to reverse engineer your friend group based on that. Now, I'm not saying that you need to leverage every single personal relationship that you have in your life. I'm not one of those people who will tell you that you have to cut off every single person in your life. However, you need to have at least a few trustworthy, dedicated people in your life who are going to help you elevate as a person, and vice versa. I'm going to give you an example. My friend Bryce Wilson. Okay, shout out to Bryce Wilson. He may or may not be watching this, but if you've been following my channel for long enough, you know about Bryce Wilson. You've seen Bryce Wilson. You might have even watched some of his videos, and if you haven't, I would highly recommend that you do. Bryce Wilson helped me get my life together before he ever even realized it. It wasn't anything that he ever told me to do. It wasn't anything that he ever insinuated or implied. It was simply my observation of how he moves that helped me change my whole entire paradigm as far as my work ethic goes. You see, like I said, I always thought that I was a lazy person, but when I came across Bryce Wilson and I saw how he was moving, I realized that if he can do it, so can I. And that helped me expand my boundaries, my self-perception in terms of what my personal capabilities were. You see, Bryce Wilson is the type of person that when he tells you he's going to do something, he'll only tell you once. Sometimes he won't even tell you at all. He'll tell you that one time, and then a week later, it's done. It's done. And it always freaks me out because he gets things done in such an efficient manner while also having so much else on his plate. You see, one thing about Bryce Wilson that I always say, I always tell him this, is that he needs to start telling more of his story or sharing more of his personal life on his channel. Because if you guys really saw how he moves, you would understand why I find so much inspiration from him and why he's one of my closest friends and also one of my most meaningful connections. Because having him around, being able to talk to him, that enables me to elevate myself. Because I know that me and him are so similar that if I see him doing something, that means that I can do it too. And vice versa. We help expand each other's consciousness, and it creates this multiplier effect, this compound effect, where we both become better. We both become better, we both become more productive in meaningful ways. We're not out here just being productive for the sake of being productive. We are making moves that actually matter. And even if the results aren't necessarily there on the front end, they'll be there on the back end. Seeing how he was working on his book inspired me to put in that much more effort on my book. And now I have 2 books which are self-published. But I probably wouldn't have been able to do that had I not seen how Bryce Wilson was moving. And I'm not just saying this to gas him up because he's my homie. No, he's my homie for a reason. Right? Aside from the fact that we have so much in common, he actually inspires me to do better. Surround yourself with people who inspire you to do better. If you're surrounded by people who just want to party and do drugs and drink alcohol all the time, then what do you think you're going to do? You're going to do the same things that they do. Otherwise, you won't be friends for long, because what are you going to do together? What do you guys have to talk about? A good rule of thumb, in my opinion and in my experience, is if you can only talk about the past with that friend, you need to cut that person off. Or at the very least, you need to set very, very hard boundaries where you can create some distance, some separation between you and that person. Because if you have only the past to talk about, if all you ever talk about is the things that happened in high school or middle school even, if you're only ever reminiscing on the past and you're never talking about your visions for the future or even the present moment, the chances are you and that person have grown apart without realizing it. And a lot of you guys, you're surrounded by people who you've grown apart from. Because oftentimes we make most of our friends from school. We make a lot of our friends growing up in school, and we're only friends with them based on proximity and age. They're the same age as us, and they just so happen to live in the same location. Maybe you have one thing in common, but ultimately, you're not real friends. You're just friends based on your circumstances. Kind of like prison. If you're in prison and you have a cellmate, you're probably going to try to be cool with your cellmate because you're going to spend so much time with them anyways. In the same way, a lot of us make these friends that we have nothing in common with. We have nothing in common with, and they really have no business being in our lives and us in theirs. But a lot of us aren't willing to let go of these friendships because we're not willing to be alone. But ironically, being alone is when you find your purpose more often than not. That's when you find your purpose. You see, a lot of people, they confuse laziness with stillness, with inaction, intentional inaction. Intentional inaction is one of the most productive things you can do. A lot of people don't take the time to just sit there with themselves and do that reflection, do that introspection, because guess what? It's uncomfortable. And that's why I've been documenting my process of doing that, because I want to inspire you guys to do the same thing. I want you guys to start questioning everything about your current situation. Everything that you're dissatisfied with, I want you to question it. Why am I dissatisfied with this? What can I do to change this situation? I understand that it's uncomfortable and there's no way to make it more comfortable. But at the same time, it's 100% necessary if you want to find your purpose. You have to learn to be still. That means no podcasts, no music, no videos, no Netflix, no books, no nothing. You in a room with your thoughts. That's it. Maybe even a piece of paper and a pencil. That's it. Just you sitting there and doing the deep inner work that 99% of people never take the time to do. Just you doing that. That is you being more productive than the vast majority of the population, because that's when you're able to recalibrate. You're able to recalibrate and start moving in a meaningful direction. A lot of people think that just because you work hard, that means that you're not lazy. No, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not lazy. For example, when I was working at IHOP, I used to work extremely hard physically, 8 to 10 hours every Saturday and Sunday. And that's with school. Okay, that's with school, that's junior year, my hardest year of high school. I'm working every weekend. Months are going by where I'm sleep deprived. I'm still working very hard because in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't want to be lazy. I don't want to be the person that everybody sees as lazy. And looking back on it, that was probably my first real glimpse at my work ethic. Because like I said, I generally did the bare minimum, but I digress. Basically, I worked at that job for 11 months and made no progress in my life whatsoever. All I had to show for it was a few new pairs of shoes, some jewelry, and some clothes. That was it. I worked very hard just to go back into the same position that I had been in with a few new material possessions. It wasn't until I started to expand my mind, to take the time to just sit back and think, or better yet, feel. Just feel what I needed to feel in order to find the clarity to establish somewhat of a life vision, a sense of purpose. And once I did that, I was able to take probably 60% of that same work ethic, apply it in that direction, and make genuine progress in my life. Me filming this video takes me no more than 25 minutes. No more than 25 minutes, maybe an hour to edit, at most. That's an hour and 25 minutes of work to make this video, which will make me more than I would have made in a day at IHOP. where I was working way harder. Being lazy isn't about how hard you work. It's about how intentional you are. And by you being willing to take the time to embrace inaction and embrace stillness and silence and solitude, you will be able to find a sense of direction which actually matters to you, a meaningful sense of direction.